Police can no longer pull you over for tint alone. I know that's going to make a lot of you guys' day. Talk to me. How do you feel about it? Like I said, it gives drivers more freedom, but it takes away some of the power from the police, man. How do you feel about it? YouTube, what's going on? It is your boy Knockout360 here with another video for you guys. So as you can tell, I'm in a car. That makes this a car vlog. You already know how it's going down when I come around. Let's go ahead and get into it, man. Car content, car shows, car reviews, car meets, anything and everything car related happens on this channel, man. So if you're into that, make sure that you stick around because you're in the right place, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. For everyone else, hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so that you know what's coming out and when it's coming out, right? Let's go ahead and get into it, man. Police can no longer pull you over for tint alone. I know that's going to make a lot of you guys' day. Let's go ahead and get into it, man. New law bans police from pulling over drivers solely for certain car safety violations. What are those violations, you may be asking? They include defective equipment, objects dangling from the rearview mirror. I don't know why you would have that. Loud exhaust, smelling marijuana, to name a few, as well as tinted windows. Several minor infractions, while still illegal, can no longer be the primary reason police can pull you over. So in other words, there used to be a time where a police officer, it could be a state trooper, it could be a local cop, whatever, 9 times out of 10, it would be, I don't know, actually, it could be either one, state trooper, local cop. I'm not sure who's more likely for it to happen to. But you could have a car heavily tinted, such as, I'm not going to say mine because, you know, mine is legally tinted. All of this is legal. I've got permits. I've got paperwork. I've got everything. But you could have a car that was illegally tinted, whether it was the front windshield or the side windshields or a combination of both. If a police officer saw you and he, you know, was visibly able to see that your car was illegally tinted, because most states have 35%, 31%. I think Florida may be like the darkest at like 20%. Correct me if I'm wrong for you, Pauls. Wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong for you Florida guys out there, but I think you guys are actually able to do 20% at the darkest. I'm not quite sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in North Carolina it's 35%. So long story short, it has to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may have this backwards, but it has to be, it can only be tinted to the point of 35%, whatever. I'm not even going to get into the specifics of it because I know I'm going to confuse myself. But anything darker than 35% is illegal, for which you can be pulled over, you can receive a ticket, and then ultimately you have to take the tint off and then pay whatever fine comes associated with the ticket. A lot of my guys in the past have dealt with that, specifically guys with, you know, like mad illegal tint, 5%, like limo tint, 5% on the front windshield, 5% on the sides, crazy stuff. Basically the kind of tint where it's like you're asking for something, right? If you're driving a Crown Vic and your stuff is completely darked out or blacked out, you're asking for it. Let's just be honest here, because, you know, people that drive Crown Vics are probably up to some nefarious activities. Not going to get into that. You do what you do, how you do it. But yeah, cops would pull you over for that and they would hit you with a ticket. They would pull out the little tint meter. The tint meter is like a little device that goes on your windshield. So it would go just like that on both sides of the windshield. And if it did not allow a certain amount of light in and that light was below the legal limit for that state, you would get a ticket and you would have to pay the fine as well as pay to get the tint taken off. Now, I don't know about you guys, but paying to get tint taken off your car is sometimes just as expensive, if not more expensive, than actually putting the tint on. Right? In some cases, most tint shops will charge you $100, $150 plus to get the tint taken off, right? And you guys know that for our cars, Chargers at least, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows, right? 6 windows, well, 7 windows if you include the rear one, and then if you're gonna do the front windshield, I'm including a little small window as well. Like for me, I think for my tint actually ran like $250 just for the sides and the back, and then they charged me $120 for the front. So we're looking at easily $300 plus, maybe a little under $400 to get the entire car tinted. So for them to take all that off, I'm quite sure that they would be willing to charge somewhere within a realm of a little over $200. Needless to say, a lot of people like to avoid that. So when police pull up, they would roll their windows down, whatever the case may be, open up the sunroof if they had it. You know what I'm saying? Any way that they could, just to avoid getting a ticket. Now, things have changed here recently in light of some of the issues that the public has had with police officers as far as traffic stops are concerned. I mean, I think you can even attribute it to some of the social injustice issues that we've been dealing with, getting pulled over by police officers unnecessarily, and then it leads to something completely different. A lot of police officers in the past, to my imagination, what they would do is they would look at your car and say, listen, there looks something about that car looks fishy. You know, something about it looks fishy. Maybe it's too loud, or it could just be some good old fashioned prejudice and what do they call it? Racial profiling, right? Not saying that that's the case for every situation, but a lot of cops have done that in the past, and that has been a reason for a lot of traffic stops. So a given officer would look at a particular car and say something doesn't look right with that car. Maybe everything looks right, but I just want to fuck with this person because I can. They would look at your tint typically and say, okay, that tint looks a little bit darker than normal. That's my probable cause for pulling this car over. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this car over. I'm not only going to hit them with a tint charge or whatever the case may be, but now I'm going to be sniffing around this car looking for other stuff. And even if there isn't something, in some cases, you know, the driver gets upset, the officer escalates the situation, and then it becomes a situation, right? A lot of states are starting to ban or prohibit that type of stuff from happening because they don't want any more interactions with drivers than police officers have to. So obviously, if your car looks fishy or if it looks like you're transporting something, then, I mean, realistically speaking, they probably can't stop you at that point. At this point, for loud exhaust, tinted windows, even smelling marijuana, which was a surprise. I'm going to tell you what state is actually implementing these laws here shortly. After, you know, I go through the spiel, because there's this state and then there's one city in North Carolina that's doing it, I know for a fact. But even if they smell marijuana in the car, which I don't know how they would do if they were, like, you know, parked on the side of the road and you were driving past, but even still, they can't legally pull you over for that. There has to be some sort of serious driver safety infraction being committed in order for them to pull you over. Now, the one that stuck out to me most was tinted windows. So you're telling me that we can't get pulled over for illegally tinted windows? Like I said, in the state of North Carolina, the limit is 35%. Anything under 35%, 20%, 28, 15, 5, you're getting pulled over, and that's illegal. Well, that's not the case in this situation. Cops can no longer pull you over for that alone. Now, if you're weaving in and out of traffic as if you're drunk or something like that, then they have probable cause to pull you over. But just for the tint alone, they can't do that. Which makes things, I mean, that's kind of a win-win situation for the car community, right? Because a lot of you guys have said in my previous videos that you were getting pulled over for something as simple as tint, and then getting hit with a $180 charge, and then you got to go and take the tint off, which is another $100 to $150 plus. And before you know it, you paid, I mean, a little under, a little over $500, especially if you want to get an attorney and try to fight it and take it to another level. Or if you just decide, hey, listen, I'm just going to pay the fine and take my chances. I'm not taking anything off. That's obviously an option there. But this new law, a new overturning of the law, will make things a lot easier for drivers such as us, right? There are, you know, a converse or an inverse to this. And the inverse is that some of those traffic stops that have been made in the past with cars that looked suspicious actually turned out to be good stops. In other words, a cop would see a car that was illegally tinted, or, you know, blowing marijuana out the window or something like that, or just didn't look right. They would stop him, and turns out, you know, that person's got 30 kilos of cocaine in the trunk, or got illegal guns in the trunk. In which case you would say that's a good bust right there. That's a cop using his wherewithal, his wilds, his you know, just kind of intuition, and seeing something wrong with this car, approach the car, stop the car, and because of that, those guns, those drugs, that person is off the street. Well, you know, unfortunately, that won't be the case in this particular situation here, because cops are no longer able to do that. The law states that they can't do that. They cannot pull somebody over for something as simple as a loud exhaust. We're going to talk about that here shortly. Rearview mirror, something hanging from the rearview mirror. Once again, I don't know why anybody would do that. Smelling of marijuana or tinted windows. So just because the car is illegally tinted, Cops cannot pull you over. They have to have another reason to pull you over. They cannot pull you over for tint alone. But to my understanding, if they do pull you over for something else and you do have tint on your car and they realize that, they can give you a ticket, but they can't initiate the traffic stop for the tint alone. They can't pull up to you and say your tint looks illegal, and that's the reason for the stop. It has to be speed, and it has to be reckless driving. It has to be something else, expired tag, what have you. It can't be tint alone. Now, with that being said, most states, such as North Carolina, even though this law can and will be implemented in the state of North Carolina, you know, like I know, we still have to get our cars inspected. So in order to get your car inspected, you have to pass the tint window meter or whatever. So on one hand, they can't pull you over and charge you for tint, but on the other hand, you don't pass your registration in the state of North Carolina. You don't pass your inspection. In other words, you don't get an updated registration card, and you don't get a sticker on your license plate if you failed the tint, which would prompt a cop to pull you over. Right? So on one hand, they're not going to pull you over for tint. On the other hand, if you fail inspection, you're not going to get your sticker, and your car is not going to be, it's not going to pass the inspection. Therefore, at that point, they can pull you over for it and then hit you with a tint charge. So either way, it's a roundabout situation. It's just one of those things where I think a lot of states are trying to limit the interaction between cops and the public as much as they can for small infractions such as tinted windows. Now, another thing was loud exhaust. Now, you guys know, for a lot of you guys that live in California, it's the opposite for you guys. I think, what's it like, Prop 80 or 20 or something, Prop 5 or something. Basically, you guys can't have illegally modified exhaust, at which point a cop can pull you over for an illegally modified exhaust, and you can get a ticket and state referendum, or state ref, that's what they call them, state referendum, which I would assume is, something similar to a ticket that you got to go to court and fight and all that stuff. But in the South, it's actually the opposite. Cops cannot pull you over for loud exhaust. A loud exhaust is pretty much legal. They don't state to what decibel level or what volume the exhaust can be. So, I mean, it could be anything from a motorcycle to a straight piped, fully blown 1969 Dodge Charger. You know what I'm saying? A loud exhaust cannot be the sole purpose for a traffic stop. Tinted windows cannot be the sole purpose for a traffic stop. So you're sitting here listening to this and you're saying, damn, that sounds good. I mean, as drivers, we get some freedoms. We can do what we want to our cars. We can make our cars as loud as we want. We can tint our windows as dark as we want. We don't have to worry. Not necessarily, because this law is only in Virginia. New law bans police from pulling over Virginia drivers solely for certain car safety violations. This was as of March 1st, 2021. So recently here, Virginia is the state that's going to be implementing this. Now, with that being said, none of my homeboys have ever been pulled over for a tint charge unless they were doing something else and they caught the tint on top of that. One of my good friends actually did get pulled over for tint, but he was before this law was passed in Virginia. He actually got pulled over in Virginia by a state trooper, but then again, he had full limo tint, 5% all the way around, and then I think he had like 20% on the front windshield. So needless to say, he was asking for it. You know what I'm saying? But this law is strictly in Virginia as of right now, but I have a feeling that it's going to start to spread to a lot of other southern cities. I feel like right now, a lot of police jurisdictions, and I'm going to bring up one in particular in a minute, but a lot of police jurisdictions are trying to limit as much interaction between police officers and drivers as much as possible, right? I think a lot of police departments are coming to the realization that racial profiling is a real thing. Profiling in general is a real thing. And some cops will sit back and say, you know what? That car doesn't look right. The person driving that car doesn't look right. Therefore, I'm going to stop them, The tint looks illegal, so I'm going to use the tint as kind of a gateway into, searching for something else, which on one hand is a bad thing because I guess it could lead to racial profiling, or it could be because of racial profiling. On the other hand, it could be a good thing because a cop using his intuition and looking at a situation, looking at something that doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, literally, and doesn't fit right in the scene. And as a result, he pulls his car over and turns out it's 50 kilos of cocaine in the trunk. He's got thousands of dollars of illegal guns in the trunk, or he's transporting people illegally. You know what I'm saying? Kidnap, prostitution, what have you. Something wild like that. So it takes a lot of power out of police officers' hands, which, like I said, can be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. This is in the state of Virginia. I know for a fact that Greensboro, North Carolina, is starting to do things like this. I'm not sure if they're going as far as the loud exhaust and the marijuana thing, but I know for tint, they're not really messing with people over that. And the reason being is because my homeboy works for 911 dispatch in Greensboro. And apparently he's privy to conversations like this. I think he knows a lot of police officers, so on and so forth. It hasn't been formally announced. There isn't a formal law or anything in place in Greensboro, North Carolina, that is. But a lot of cops, from what he's gathered and ascertained from talking to police officers, aren't messing with people over tint and, you know, loud music and exhaust and stuff like that. They're trying to limit as many interactions with police, with the public as possible, as much as they can. Now, if you're doing reckless driving or if you're driving all over the lines, similar to being drunk or high or something like that, you're going to get pulled over without a doubt. If your registration isn't up to par, you don't have a tag on your car, you know, you don't have a headlight or a tail light or something like that, you forget the signal, they can still pull you over for that. But for tint, loud exhaust, they're letting that slide because they want to limit the amount of interactions with the public as much as they can. And like I said, that's due to kind of the climate that we're in right now as far as police and the public relations. A lot of people will look at this law as a good thing in the sense that, you know, it gives more freedom to the drivers. A lot of people will look at it as in it takes power away from the police, which I completely understand both sides of the equation. Being a car guy, I mean, the more freedom that you give me to do as I please on my car, the better. But at the same time, you know, like I know, there's drugs, there's guns, there's people being kidnapped. There's all kinds of trafficking situations going on a day-to-day basis. If a police officer can't use his intuition to look at a particular car or set of cars or situation in general and say, you know what, that doesn't look right, I would like to be able to pull that person over and take a closer look. In this particular situation, they can't. So that person, that situation goes on and does what they do. Like I said, this is strictly for Virginia. As far as the law is concerned, protecting this, it has started to slowly creep into North Carolina. And I've even seen it creeping into, you know, certain parts of other states, South Carolina as well. South Carolina has always been lenient when it came to tint. I think in South Carolina, the limit is even lower than North Carolina. I want to say it's like maybe like 25%, 31%, something like that. I know it's lower than North Carolina. So technically they can go darker than North Carolina. Not to mention South Carolina, I don't believe that they have the yearly inspections like North Carolina does. So they don't have to worry about getting their car inspected, passing a tint check and a exhaust and a emission safety, all that shit, and getting a sticker for their car. They don't have to worry about that. But in North Carolina, being as strict as we are, we do. So we do suffer from that. But stuff like that is slowly starting to creep into other states. A lot of police officers are doing a kind of lot of hands-off stuff. Like, you know what? Do what you do. Just don't blame us or call us when it blows up in your face. So yeah, that's it, guys. Police officers are starting to take more of a hands-off approach at this point, giving drivers more freedom to do as they please with their car. I'm cool with the loud exhaust. I'm cool with the tinted windows situation. I don't smoke marijuana, so that doesn't apply to me. I would never have anything hanging from my rearview mirror. Oh, maybe they're talking about this mirror. So maybe if you got like some dice or something hanging from your rearview mirror, apparently that was illegal in certain states. I didn't know that. So yeah, for all you guys that's got those dice balls or dice or, you know, stuff like that hanging from your rearview mirror in the state of Virginia, that's perfectly legal at this point, right? Talk to me. How do you feel about it? Like I said, it gives drivers more freedom, but it takes away some of the power from the police, man. How do you feel about it? Talk to your boy, man. See you in the next one. Peace.